One of the bigger pieces of breaking news this season was the removal of Christian Horner from his position as Red Bull's team principal, and this ended 20 years of service for Christian Horner, during a time where he became one of the longest standing team principals in Formula 1 history, and one of the most successful. 14 combined titles, 8 for the drivers and 6 for the constructors. And I was about to say at the time of writing, but that's a completely irrelevant statement to make because, well, he's not at Red Bull anymore, so he can't add to that. But thinking about it, who did win more? Well, Colin Chapman won 7 constructors and 6 drivers, which is 13 unless my maths fails me. Enzo Ferrari, meanwhile, won 9 drivers and 8 constructors, which is 17? Yeah, 17. So, love him or hate him, Horner is up there in terms of success. You can also throw Frank Williams into the mix. He won 9 drivers and 7 constructors, which is 16, so do with those statistics what you will. But it's actually something to consider, because when you think of the more legendary and successful team principals in Formula 1 or team owners in Formula 1, the first people you're going to consider are Enzo Ferrari, Colin Chapman, Frank Williams, maybe even Ron Dennis. But these days, with how fickle sports can be because success needs delivering yesterday and not with a long-term plan to work towards, the achievements racked up by Horner cannot be underestimated. But in the summer, Horner was kicked out of Red Bull. Why? Well, here's a little recap. Over the 14 months prior to his removal, Horner and Red Bull were embroiled in several high-profile things inside and outside of Formula 1. Key among which being the sudden fall-off that the car suffered after the Miami Grand Prix, where the car suddenly became near impossible to drive if your name isn't Max Verstappen. While Verstappen was able to win the championship in 2024, owing to his dominance in the opening 6 or 7 races and the other teams taking points off each other a la Brawn in 2009, Red Bull finished down the order in the Constructors' Championship, and that wasn't a good look. Further to this, Horner himself had been the centre of a scandal involving leaked WhatsApp messages, allegedly sent between him and a female employee at Red Bull, that were coercive in nature, as reported by many outlets at the time. The investigation was conducted by external lawyers, and Horner was cleared of any wrongdoing. The female employee was released from Red Bull and is now taking things to court with regards to her dismissal. This court case will take place in January 2026, but reporting restrictions have been placed on that case. But what does that actually mean? Well, it's a good question, so I've called on a friend to explain it to you, Mr. Legal Eagle. Legal Eagle being, you know, Wikipedia. But imagine if I did get Devin or Black Belt Barrister or Robert Rinder to chime in right now. Basically, if a judge believes that the reporting of a case could prejudice a trial, these reporting bans can be put in place under Section 11 of the Contempt of Court Act 1981. Some individuals have actually been arrested for reporting outside courts and saying things that were found to either be false or to be encouraging vigilante action. There is actually a blanket ban on reporting the identities of alleged or confirmed victims of sex offences in England and Wales, but these can be lifted under certain circumstances. In this instance, however, this ban has been put in place at the request of the woman involved, presumably to protect her identity given the sensitivity of this whole case. So that's that explained. At least I hope it was explained, because I'm as qualified to talk about law as Lionel Hutz. But while he was removed from his position of team principal, Christian Horner was still employed by Red Bull, just in a, well, different capacity. Now though, he's left completely, and this means that in early 2026 he can move to another team if he wants to. The BBC was told by a source that Horner was released from Red Bull to the tune of £52 million, which is around 60 million euros. That's a lot. What this does is leave him completely free to start work somewhere else in Formula 1 if he wants to, but it will all depend on finding somewhere where he'll be wanted. Because with this labour trial looming over him and Red Bull in January, there's the risk of being found to be in the wrong and the new team being dragged into it. But the amount varies according to who is reporting it. The Daily Mail, which most people wouldn't use as toilet paper because you'd wipe more on than off, has said that it's closer to £80 million, while The Race has said £74 million. But the BBC has noted that Horner's contract was until the end of the 2030 season, and was on roughly £10 million a year. So being paid out £52 million equates roughly to his outstanding wages, which is not uncommon, especially in the world of football, where Erik ten Hag, the then Manchester United manager, was paid £14.5 million in compensation when he was sacked and then replaced by Ruben Amorim, who might be joining him soon. And when I googled Erik ten Hag to find out how much Man United paid him to go away, it turns out he's just been sacked from his new job at Bayer Leverkusen in Germany after only 3 months in charge. This man is racking up the payouts at the minute. This payout though is massive for a Formula 1 team. Not many teams, even in the current climate, can afford to just dunk 50 million quid on somebody in a lump sum. It's over a third of the team's allowed budget for a year, and questions are being raised as to whether or not this is covered by the cost cap. Because what is this defined as? Is it salary? Because the cost cap does not apply to the 3 highest earners at the team plus the drivers. So if it is classed as salary, then Red Bull should be okay. If it isn't, then they're going to have to explain that one as best they can to the people that crunch the numbers at the FIA. This is something they won't be able to put down as catering. You spent 50 million on sides? And yes, that was a Wolf of Wall Street reference. But while this is pretty much unprecedented in Formula 1, in massive multinational corporations, Horner's payout is, well, small change. Dennis Muhlenberg, who was the CEO of Boeing when the 737 MAX scandal broke, with 2 planes crashing as a result of a fault with a system called MCAS, received around £45 million in stock and pension awards when he was removed from his position. Which is less than what Horner is getting, granted, but compare that to Stefan Bancel, the former CEO of Moderna, who got a severance package of £675 million in 2019. My eyes are leaking. So the long story short here is, Christian Horner is now a free agent. He could just sit around doing nothing for the rest of time because he's got more money than anybody would ever need in their life. But Christian Horner isn't the sort of bloke to sit around and do nothing. Which is why the rumours are already spreading that he's in talks with some teams already to start work once the season gets underway in 2026. Now initially Horner was linked to Ferrari and also to Cadillac, but Ferrari shot down those talks by offering Fred Vasseur an extension on his contract, and Cadillac shot down the idea in public almost immediately, and then went on to appoint former Manor boss Graham Loudon. With other team principal jobs filled by the likes of Toto Wolff and James Vowles and former Red Bull employee Jonathan Wheatley at Sauber/Audi, there are other options that are being floated around. Now obviously he can't go back to Red Bull or Racing Bulls because, well, what would be the point? The first destination is Alpine. Flavio Briatore is back at that team and is in the process of overhauling it as much as possible. They will also go into the 2026 season without their own engines, buying them from Mercedes instead. And Briatore was a bit coy with his comments at the Dutch Grand Prix a few weeks ago, and his comments to the media with regards to signing Horner being his usual not confirming, not denying style. And Briatore simply said that he was considering it but wasn't going to go much further with the possibility of signing Horner, because at that time, Horner was still working for Red Bull. Now, he's not, so that might go somewhere in the next few months. Another option is Aston Martin. Lawrence Stroll has got big ideas for the team, and if you've driven past Silverstone in the last year or so, you'll have seen that the place is one massive construction site. Aston has expanded the facilities, they've got a new wind tunnel and a lot of state-of-the-art stuff going on. They're also in the hypercar class of the World Endurance Championship with the absolutely stunning Valkyrie, and Lawrence wants that car up near the top in the next few years. The Formula 1 car and the Valkyrie for that matter. But that said, Alonso is on the edge of retiring, and he's actually said that if next year's car is bad, it will probably be time to walk away, as hard as that will be. But there is an opening there for Verstappen to hook up back with Newey at Aston if the Red Bull is terrible next season, so who even knows? But there is one thing to consider here: personality clashes. Horner likes to have everything under control himself. He won't necessarily want to be taking orders from somebody else. As somebody eloquently wrote on a comment section, Horner isn't a captain, he's the fleet commander. He's not Christopher Pike, he's Robert April. He's not Benjamin Sisko, he's William Ross. He's not Jean-Luc Picard, he's JP Hansen. He's not Eric Rotherham, he's Horatio Nelson. I've got more of these if you want them. Yeah, I googled captains at the Battle of Trafalgar, what about it? But the point remains. Putting Horner with Lawrence Stroll, a man who knows exactly what he likes, or even Flavio Briatore, where strong personality doesn't even begin to describe him, despite the two getting along. How long before they have a bust-up? Furthermore, you could say that Adrian Newey went to Aston Martin to get away from Christian Horner's personality and behaviour, and now Christian Horner might end up walking through the front door at Silverstone. So that's another thing to consider. And actually, while we're on the subject, Aston already has Andy Cowell as their CEO and team principal, so I don't know where Horner's going to fit in with all of this. Newey is also probably more important to Aston Martin than anything else. The big talking point for 2026, at least from the car perspective, is what Adrian Newey is cooking over there. Will he nail 2026 like he did 2009 and 2022? Although it does have to be said, there is the belief that 2026 will be an engine formula rather than a car one, and the belief is that Mercedes have already got it cracked for next year. Aston will be with Honda next year, not Mercedes. But at the same time, if Aston was to get hold of Horner, they'd have one asset that they can really exploit: the Honda relationship. But some are saying that they can't see it happening, that Newey would veto any potential of getting hold of Horner given what happened in 2024 and also the court case that's upcoming and likely to go on for some time. At the same time, is Stroll going to let someone in who will likely go, "Oh, this is lovely, what's this called? Oh, fantastic, right, good, I'm now changing its name to mine," and doing what he's going to do with it. Stroll has already been a bit too hands-on at Aston in the past and been a bit too interested in what's going on to be able to let the team just get on with things. Having Horner there doesn't seem plausible. And that's also why Ferrari will definitely not happen, because are they really going to let Christian Horner walk through the front door at Maranello and take control of virtually everything? Ferrari hates that kind of thing. It's a miracle that they let Jean Todt do it. The other option that's been floating around is Haas, who have recently signed a technical partnership with Toyota. As we've already seen, this technical partnership they've set up with the team is something that Toyota can do that is low risk and low cost at the same time. And given Toyota's previous foray into Formula 1, they can't really risk it being run the way it previously was. So Toyota gets a flexible working and commercial tie with Haas, and if they ever need to pull out, they can. But at the same time, there's personality clashes. Is Toyota, a massive multinational corporation, going to want to be near Horner with the already mentioned court case that's brewing? They're not going to want to be associated with that until Horner is cleared. If that happens, obviously. And we're still 4 months away from that even beginning. Out of the teams that Horner's linked to, Alpine seems the most logical and realistic choice, potentially taking the job of Briatore. If Horner really wants in, he might have to buy in, with The Guardian saying that this might be difficult given that the underperforming Alpine team is valued at just over £1 billion. For any future security, he'd have to buy in like Toto Wolff did at Mercedes. And like already mentioned, he and Flavio do get along, but getting along personally and in a business sense don't necessarily go together. They could easily have a bust up over something eventually as their two personalities clash. But with that said, Horner's way of doing things would be just what Alpine needs to get it climbing back up the order. And there is also the fact that if Horner goes to Alpine, he'll be buying engines direct from his old adversary, Toto Wolff. It's not necessarily the biggest of deals, but it's still funny. But one thing The Guardian mentioned is that Horner having to wait until the next season starts to work somewhere else might play into everybody's hands. Because if a team starts 2026 and is way off the pace compared to everybody else, heads will be on the chopping block, particularly at teams like Alpine and Haas. Teams that have adapted badly to the new rules might be looking to bring someone in who has a lot of experience, and Horner is the most experienced man available right now. Sure, he's not going to make it back into the Red Bull teams, they're completely off the table, but even though Ferrari has extended Vasseur's contract, there might still be an opening available. Haas and Alpine as well. Aston though, might be a little bit more difficult, considering that it's no secret that Stroll is interested in signing Verstappen, especially if Alonso retires at the end of next year. Gunther Steiner, the former Haas boss, is also doubting whether or not Horner will go to Aston Martin, saying that with the people in place, Aston is well set to show what they can do under the new regulations. Part of the reason that Adrian left Red Bull was the tension developing there, and bringing Horner and Newey back together probably might not work at this moment in time. He also said that in the last year and a half there was drama with Red Bull every single race weekend. With Laurent Mekies at the helm now, those dramas have gone. Completely. Disappeared. And if Aston is serious about hiring Verstappen, they can't go for Horner until Verstappen has either committed to Red Bull or gone somewhere else. So this whole thing isn't a done deal. There are links to different teams, but nothing is set in stone yet. This is just rumours, and I'm here to humour those rumours. And that's a phrase I've not said in a very, very long time. But, you know, as always with these things, I'd like to know what you think down in the comments. Will Christian Horner go somewhere else in Formula 1? Will he go elsewhere? Or is it just going to have to be one of those things we'll have to wait and see when everything calms down a bit? So then, a look at Christian Horner's massive payout from Red Bull and what it means for one of the most successful team principals in Formula 1 history, and at the same time, one of the most divisive. If this video has been interesting for you and given you some conversation starters, then do leave a like so I know a good job was done. And for more stuff from the channel, get subscribed and also get the bell on so you never miss out on anything else that I do around here. Massive thanks as always go out to the mad lads over at Patreon who continue to support me at a more personal level, and if you want to help with the picture purchasing piggy bank or otherwise keep the lights on around here, there's a link to Patreon down in the description, where there's also links for Discord, socials, affiliates with the F1 store where, I get a little kickback on stuff you buy and anything else that you might want or need to know. Or there's super thanks for one and done donations and memberships for Patreon style support, but without the Patreon. So until next time, I've been Aidan Millward, have a great day wherever you are, and goodbye.